This is WICR.
From the basement of La Penta, this is your host, The Rock is on this Monday, February 29th, leap year, a day that which only comes once every 4 years, on a nice warm day, and in a day in which we are approaching March, but we have a lot to get to. Baseball season's around the corner. We're reaching the final quarter of the NBA season and going into the playoffs. But we're not. I'm not going to start this segment today talking about sport or any sport in particular. I want to talk about the Grammys from last night. Now, as you know, unless you've been living under a rock or you just don't have any social media sites, Leonardo DiCaprio, yes, the Leonardo DiCaprio finally got off the schneid and won an Oscar for his movie The Revenant. And it's just him winning the Oscar. It's just so surreal because it's like, how can I say it? It's kind of like that. How can I put it to you this way? I'll put it to you this way. Leonardo DiCaprio winning winning an Oscar. It's kind of like a team, in any professional sport that's always making the playoffs, and it's always knocking on the door, and then they always fall short. And they always fall short. And and in years past, Leonardo DiCaprio always fell short of winning an Oscar. But this year, when he finally won the Oscar, it was just so scintillating. And that's how some teams are in professional sports. We know when you win it, when you make the playoffs every year, you knock on the door, and then it's just that 1 year, if you're lucky, because some teams always knock on the door and they never prevail. The Philadelphia Eagles in the 2000s with Andy Reid. They went to a total of 5 NFC Championship games, 4 consecutively. Only 1 Super Bowl appearance, and they lost that Super Bowl to the Patriots. And they always knocked on the door, and they didn't prevail. But one team that you can relate Leonardo DiCaprio winning the Oscar is the Ravens in years past, because ever since the John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco era started, you had the Ravens were always making the playoffs, and they were always winning at least one playoff game. I believe they are 4, and since John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco took over the realm for the Ravens, I believe they're 4-0 in the wild card game, because they won his rookie year. They beat the Dolphins. Then the year after that, they beat the Patriots, and then they beat the Chiefs the year after that. So that's 3. Oh, actually, excuse me, 5-0, because the year they won the Super Bowl, they beat the Indianapolis Colts, which was Andrew Luck's first season, rookie year. And then a few years ago, they beat their arch rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was their first in the wild card game, which was their first defeat against the Steelers in the playoffs. But going back to Leonardo DiCaprio, you just got to give him credit. The guy paid his dues. The guy just flat out earned it. And you can name all the movies he was in. I remember watching him in Titanic. I remember seeing him and how perfectly he played that role of Jack. And at the end with Rose saying, "Oh, I'll never let go. I'll never let go, Jack. I promise." And then we all know he died. Well, he died at that scene, but then she let go and he sank to the bottom of the ocean. But just kudos to Leonardo DiCaprio. And prior to him, winning an Oscar, a lot of people were making memes about him, about how he never won an Oscar, or how it's like it will never happen. Hence the Brian Williams memes saying, "Oh, there I was watching Leonardo DiCaprio win the Oscar." All right, but with Leonardo DiCaprio, but in years past in pop culture, there was always two things that always generated a lot of memes, and there was just always a sense of doubt that it will never happen. It would just never happen. One was Leonardo DiCaprio not winning the Oscar, and the other one is the Chicago Cubs never winning a World Series, or haven't won a World Series since 1908, since the Russian Revolution happened. So think about that for a sec. But with Leonardo DiCaprio getting off the schneid and finally winning the Oscar that has eluded him this for the last decade, decade and a half, you can say, is 2016 the year the Chicago Cubs win the World Series? And you know what? They have a good chance. They have a phenomenal chance. Now, as a Met fan, am I going to say they're going to win? I want them. I'm not going to sound biased. I'm a Met fan. I'm going to root for the Mets. But let's just say the Mets and the Cubs play in the NLCS, which most likely is going to be a possibility based on how these teams, improve themselves and who they retain back and who they acquired via free agency. But let's just say the Mets and the Cubs play in the NLCS. And let's say, for instance, the Cubs beat the Mets in the NLCS. Am I going to be disappointed? Yeah, I am, because, I want my team to win. I want the Mets, to finish the job and redeem themselves from last year's defeat to the Kansas City Royals in the World Series. But it's like with the Cubs, it's like you can't. Are you going to be mad because you lost to the Cubs? Come on. There's not one team in baseball that went through so much heartbreak and so much anguish than the Chicago Cubs and their fans of the north side of Chicago in the friendly confines. But, like I said, the Cubs, they have a chance. They have a chance. They acquired Jason Hayward, and they acquired Jason Hayward. They, via free agency, stole him from their division rival, the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think that move for Hayward put the Cubs over the limit, or surpassed the Cardinals. The Cubs surpassed the Cardinals with that move, and then they traded Sterling Castro, who I thought was a pretty decent, pretty solid player for the Cubs. Was a solid fielder, phenomenal hitter. Put him in the 2-3 slot, or bat him second or third in the lineup. But the Cubs, with Baez and Russell, though, they had some depth with the shortstop and second base position. So they traded Castro to get Adam Warren and then utility guy Brendan Ryan from the New York Yankees. Now, I think the Yankees won that deal, but you know what? You get a solid reliever in Warren, though, that can pitch maybe the 6th, 7th inning if necessary, maybe the 8th if necessary. So, the Cubs improved in that bullpen, though, or improved in that asset, or in that area, excuse me. And then you're still gonna have Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, and Kyle Schwarber. But Schwarber defensively is an enigma because we all saw how atrocious, just absolutely atrocious, he was in the field. Just watch clips of him in the last year's NLCS against the Mets, and you would see why. But you know what? The Cubs, and they have one of the best managers in Joe Maddon. So you know what? The Cubs, just like the Mets, they have a great chance of winning the World Series. They really do. Now, thinking about this for a second, how awesome would this be? Now, like I said numerous times, I want the Mets to win the World Series. I want them to win. But I'm not going to be highly disappointed if it was the Cubs beating them, because you know what? If there's a team that deserves to win the championship, and if it's not the Mets, then it's the Cubs. To be honest with you, I'd be devastated if it was like some team like the Cardinals or the Giants, because those teams are always in it every year. And they have championship caliber teams. So, but like I said, you can't get disappointed with the Cubs. But referring back to what I was going to say, imagine this, with Leonardo DiCaprio winning the Oscars this year, winning an Oscar this year. What if the Chicago Cubs win the World Series? The Cubs winning the World Series. That would be that would just be an unfathomable script that you can't make up in Hollywood. This Leonardo DiCaprio and the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series in the same year, in the same calendar year. Wow. Only one could dream. Only one could dream. But hey, with baseball season around the corner, spring training, anything is possible. Baseball. Like I say, baseball is to me, baseball is a 6 month marathon, which means any team could get if you get hot at the right time. If you're in a pennant chase come September, come Labor Day, and you get hot at that time, look out. Just look out. That concludes our first segment of The Rock is On.